Yesterday we had some questions, right? So yesterday we had some questions which were pending, and a lot of people actually pinged me, and I thought that I should take up those questions. So must be 5 minutes. I will take up those questions, and then I'm going to go to Kubernetes, right? So these were yesterday's questions. So let me start from down. Error logging in containerized application. Yes, so if you're logging error, again, it would be the same way. Your application, whenever it throws an error, it can throw an error into some folder. It can throw an error into a database. Through the container, it does have a feature, where you can go and you can view the errors from outside, right? I installed Windows Home Edition, but it does not work properly. I think I said this yesterday. Can we automate deployment using Docker? So that's what is today's training all about. So this automating installation into Docker, the orchestration part, all this thing, which I'm going to go and talk today. Please include API gateway, associated composite pattern, okay, design pattern we can see sometimes later. If that's a question only on design pattern, no, we'll see that sometimes later. Microservices should only do a single task as per my knowledge. Why? Okay, so a microservices, it's not necessary it should do a single task. It can be an inventory application. An inventory application can do many tasks, right? So no, I don't think that it can do only a single task and so on. Okay, is there any way that the containers can communicate to each other? I think I said yesterday, you can use WCF or you can use Web API. How load balancing and failover happens in cluster? Today's answer, Kubernetes. We are going to have a look at Kubernetes today. Can we have access to Docker instance? Yes, you can. Yesterday I showed that we can have a look at the Docker instance. We can ping that IP and so on. How to update the binary files in Docker? So there is a Docker update command. You can go and you can update the Docker code files and you can update it, right? So that's also, it's there. There are other technologies, container technologies. Why is Docker so famous? Because Docker came, Docker came, I think, almost like 4 years back, and they are quite stable as compared to other containers. But there are other containers which are coming from Microsoft and Google. Those are also doing well. But at this moment, Docker is the front runner because it came up very early, right? Does Docker have any life cycle? Not aware of it. Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, so these were some of the questions. I just tried to answer them. Also, I was waiting for other people to also come in. So those questions are out there. So today's class is all about Kubernetes. I don't know how do you spell that? Kubernetes, right? Okay. So what exactly is Kubernetes? Let's talk about it. So I'm going to go and clear all my screen out here. Actually, I have copy pasted one diagram from the internet. I like this diagram. It is very simplified, and we can have a look at it, right? But Kubernetes, is for orchestration of your containers. So now think about it. You have an infrastructure wherein you are using a lot of microservices. So for example, assume that you have box 1. This is physical boxes, physical machines, I mean to say. So this is physical machine 2, physical machine 1, right? Okay, now inside this, you have one container, must be, let's say, a Docker D1. It has ASP.NET running. You have Docker D2. Inside this, you have just a Docker D1, a D3, and must be you have D4. You can have some more complicated architecture as well. For example, in some of the machines, you will say you will create a VM. You can see now this is quite complicated. To create a VM, inside this, you have Docker 5 and Docker 6 and so on, right? Now think about it, if you are supposed to manage each one of these machines, then it is so tough, right? Why? Because you need to really work physically directly on these machines, right? So if I can go and have some kind of a management layer on the top of it, if I can go and have some kind of management layer on the top of it, and by using that management layer, I can say that go and update this Docker D2, and automatically it goes and updates Docker D2. If let us say this machine fails out here, I would like to have a failover. I would like to say that, okay, here is PM4 machine, which was kept as a standalone. So from here, just take all these two, D1 and D2, and start running out here with the states probably with it, right? So you want to have a management out here, a management layer, which will help you to do orchestration, help you to deploy those images, build those images, and do things easy. So if you see, remember yesterday, we had to do like Docker new, and then Docker build, and then Docker run, and so many commands were out there, right? So that's what is Kubernetes all about. Kubernetes is a you can think about a management layer, right? It is a management layer which actually helps you to manage your Docker images, your container images, right? Now Kubernetes is not tightly coupled with Docker. So definitely Docker does not need Kubernetes, and Kubernetes does not need Docker. Kubernetes is also, a lot of people also use this, Kubernetes. So Kubernetes, so that 8 word is, sometimes people just say K8s, right? K8. So Kubernetes is like a layer on the top of it. So Docker can stay without Kubernetes. Kubernetes can run without Docker. It can run on, it can use other container technology as well. But definitely the most, how do you say, the marriage between Kubernetes and Docker is so strong that, you talk about Kubernetes, Docker has to be a part of it, right? So at this moment, they are gelling very naturally with each other. So, so this is the basic of Kubernetes. Now let us go ahead and understand the different blocks which are there in Kubernetes, right? So first thing, we have a physical machine out here. Again, I'm sorry, I'm recreating the diagram again. Physical machine out here. And inside this physical machine, I have, let us say, as I've said, let's say I have Docker 1 and Docker 2. Now assume this Docker 1 and Docker 2 are, let me do like this. These are both Docker files. These are both Docker D1 and D2, right? But inside this Docker, I'm running my ASP.NET Web API. And inside this D2, I'm running my SQL Server. But both of them are one application. Both of them are actually one application, but I've just created them separately for whatever reason, right? Okay, or must be, you can think about that, okay, this is a Docker for inventory, and there is a Docker for, I can just make it more logical because, so let's do like, so here it is. This is a Docker, is it a Docker or a container? So container is the fundamental and Docker implements it, right? So container and Docker, I will not say they are synonyms. So container is a thought process, right? And Docker implements it. For example, you have object-oriented programming, and then C# implements it, right? So whenever I'm using the word container, I mean to say Docker at this moment, right? So assume now this is an inventory app, and this is an accounting app, right? But both of them are one logical unit at the end of the day. Means whenever I update this, then this also should work properly, right? So this one deployment out here in Kubernetes is termed as a pod. I'm now trying to give you some terminologies about Kubernetes, right? So this is termed as a pod. A pod is a logical unit which says that, okay, it actually logically groups containers, right? I can have a separate pod here which says that, okay, this is a pod which is only having one container, must be. Why not, right? Why they are using this word pod here, why they're logically grouping the Docker's containers, so that, tomorrow, let's say if something happens over here, and let's say I want to shift this to PM2, then I can take this complete pod and shift it out here. So it becomes very logical to shift a group of container in one go to another machine if I want, right? So this is termed as a pod. And this one here, this machine, it's not necessary to be a machine. It can be a VM also. It's termed as a node. So there is a node, there is a pod, and pod has those Docker instances, right? So this is a Docker instance, this is a Docker instance, right? So a pod, a node, right? So just going to that diagram out here, you can see that this is a pod, and there are containers inside it, right? Okay, now on the top of it, as I've said, that there is some kind of a management API, or I'll say a management layer on the top of it, which actually helps to manage things with each one of these nodes and pods out here, right? Now, okay, here it is. So this, now remember, end users, this is for the admin part. I just want to tell you that how things are, right? In case if you have seen my video of Azure Fabric does the same thing. Azure Fabric, what it does is it creates a big fabric on top of the machines, right? So this is like a fabric which is weaving all the power of the container together, doing management and so on, right? So this from here, this is a part of admin. So this is more, this layer will be used by admin. But the end users, when they go and hit a website, they will be hitting the website of something of this Docker. So end users are from here. So end users, when they go to the browser, they'll be hitting the websites out here, right? So end users are at other place and admins are at the other place. So please note that Kubernetes is only for admins. It has nothing to do with the end user directly, right? Okay. Now this is termed as a master controller. I'm just trying to just keep the same names out here. So this you can term it as a master node, right? This master node, you can access it, through you can access it through some through a command line if I want, right? Or if I want, so I can give commands and in this master controller, the master node will accept it. Or if I want, I can use something called as the master dashboard. So there is a dashboard as well, a website. There's a website made by Kubernetes. I'll show that. By using a simple website also, you can send the things. So either you can use a command line or either you can use this, right? Master will accept both of them, right? Now, so this, whenever this request comes, this comes to this API layer. Guys, don't go too much on my diagrams. I'm just trying to see that you understand the architecture. But remember that at the end of the day, when you're working on actual Kubernetes, you don't even know you are installing on a node or a pod. You just install, you just update, right? It is very much abstraction for you. So, but at this moment, I just want to make sure that you know all these layers, because when you fire the Kubernetes command, you will see that those names coming up, pod, node, right? So that should be clear, right? So there is this API service out here, kind of a web API you can think about, which takes all these commands to this API service and forwards it ahead, right? This through command line, if you want to go and fire through command line, they have created a nice command line. It's a utility called as the kube control. So I can use this kubecontrol.exe, and if I want, I can fire commands on it. I will show that how to use kubecontrol.exe, right? Also, there is there is a replication out here. I can put some things out here. There is something called as replication out here. What is this replication? This replication is meant, in case if one of the pods go down, he can copy this pod and replicate it into some other place, right? So that the work of this replication is to ensure that, to create kind of a backup or to ensure that the service is always on, right? So that's what this work of this replication is, right? There is something called as a scheduler here as well. This scheduler, what it does is it just goes and checks, how all the nodes are, everything is working good or not. If something is overloaded, he will try to shift those pods into some other node, which is not overloaded and so on, right? So scheduler is like a mechanism at the background which works and ensures that the health of the whole thing is proper or not. Every worker node, he has named it worker node. I'm just saying node because I didn't hear that node, a worker node. So this is a node. This is also a node, right? Every node will have one small thing out here called as the kubelet. So everyone here will have this kubelet, and these kubelets, what they do is they talk with each other. They talk with the controller, and they just keep exchanging messages saying that what is the health, what is going on, what is the state. So the state of the whole node is communicated by this kubelet out here. There is a kube proxy also. So there is something called as a kube proxy also. This kube proxy helps you to expose this node out to the public, right? So you can see here that there are a lot of things out here which helps you to do orchestration. of the orchestration of your of your what do you call, of your Docker, I'm sorry, of your Docker and of your pods and of your nodes, right? So if you really ask me the abstract diagram to draw, I know that I gave you a lot of details out there, but the abstract diagram, it will be like this: node, pods, again some another node, pods, lots of nodes, lots of machines, lots of pods, and at the top of it I have this master controller, right? So you can remember this diagram, from a generic perspective, right? Okay, so now I want to go and I want to learn Kubernetes. This is good to understand, right? We understood Kubernetes, creates a kind of an administrative layer which can help you to do management and everything, right? Now, frankly, to install Kubernetes and then to configure Docker in it, it is a lot of things out there, right? There are a lot of issues in that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something called as Minikube. Guys, I'm going to first complete my lecture and then I will go to your questions, because this demo is very complex, frankly. And one of the things what I did today is, I will not do anything around Docker. I will just do around Kubernetes. And tomorrow I will do Ux. So Ux is like really what we will use when we go on Azure, right? People don't install Kubernetes and Docker. They don't really go into those details nowadays. There are ready-made packages which do things, right? So we will look more that, from the perspective of actual work. There is something called as Minikube. If you say you want to learn Kubernetes, then this is the right thing. For example, yesterday I got a lot of messages saying that, sir, we want to install on Windows Home and we want to learn all this, right? So if you want to go ahead and install Kubernetes, create an instance, create one single node, create one pod, this Minikube actually helps you to do it. So if you want to learn, this is only for learning. Why? Because this Minikube only creates a single node, because you are learning, right? And in this you can go and you can create pods, but it is just a single node. So it is not really for production. Definitely, it has all the features for testing. You can run all your kubelet commands. You can go and run everything, the Docker, everything you can configure out there. It makes your things easy for testing, for deployment. But when you talk about that you want to go live, then definitely you have to use something like Ux, or you have to use something of like Google services, where you have Kubernetes, right? So this is good for testing purpose. So today what I will do is I'm going to go and use Minikube so that we save a lot of time in our installation, right? Minikube. So Minikube, you can think about it is for testing purpose. You can use it in go live also if you have just a single node. If you just have a single node, no problem, right? So this is Minikube. So Minikube will use Kubernetes, but it will make our installation easy, right? So now let's go through the installations. Now let me talk something more. So what this Minikube does, once you install this, or once you say Minikube go and start, that's a command. Once you install Minikube, the Minikube start. What he does is he says that, okay, I will create a single node for you. So he first tries to find some kind of virtualization software. So let's say I'm running on this machine now. So he will say that either install hypervisor, Hyper-V, or either you install like a Oracle VM box. So install some hypervisor or some virtualization technique, and what he will do is he will create one single node, a default node on that virtualization technique what you have given, right? So either you can use the Oracle VM box, or in case if you're like the Microsoft fan, you can use the Hyper-V, right? So it supports both of them, and also it supports a lot of other virtualization techniques as well. So that also again it supports, right? So what it does is when you say Minikube start, it goes ahead, it creates a node and it creates a single pod, and it says, okay, here it is, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and do this, right? And second, remember I said we also need to install one command line. This command line which is there, so the command line will help us to go and manage our Minikube, the cube control. If you remember, I said you can to the master controller you can send messages via the command line, and for command line they have created an exe called as cube control, right? Okay. Now again, please note, guys, I know that I'm going into too much detail out here, but when, for example, when I'm configuring Ux, you will see that I just do next. I'm just worrying about configuration, right? In case in your office, if you're doing the deployment in your own local server, you really have to go through all the pain of installing the virtual box, enabling the virtualization, enabling that all with the thing, and then installing it, right? So first thing, Minikube. So to get Minikube, you can get it from here. So you can see here, this is where is the Minikube, right? So I have gone ahead. I have installed this Minikube. So step 1. This is where the latest version I have installed of the Minikube, right? In case you want to go ahead and get the version. So for example, if I want to now go ahead and know what is a version of Minikube, I can just say Minikube version. So at this moment in my command prompt, I have installed Minikube. So if I go here to my command prompt, I can say Minikube version. Today I'm not using Azure. I thought that I will do it in my local machine. But remember that at this moment, I'm using Windows Home. So if I'm using Windows Home, I won't be doing the demo of Kubernetes with Docker. So I'll show what demo I will do. But this is a Windows Home edition out here. So that is that. But definitely for one of the things what you need for Minikube is that you need the virtualization to be on. Why? Because it needs a virtualization technique, right? So please ensure that your machine is enabled for virtualization. So you can see here, in my case, my machine, you can see this small thing out here, virtualization is enabled, right? In case it is not enabled, you have to go to the BIOS and you have to enable that VT and then restart your machine, and this should be there. If this is not there, your Minikube will not install, right? The Minikube will install, but the Minikube won't create a node on the Oracle VM, right? Okay, so that is the first step I've done. The second step what I've also done is I've installed this step 2. I've installed the kube control exe as well, because I'll be firing some commands. So I've also installed the kube control exe as well, right? If you want to see the version of kube control exe, you can use this, right? Some important things out here. If you want to go and enable virtualization by Hyper-V, you can use these PowerShell commands. At this moment in my machine, I won't be able to enable the virtualization. Why? Because this is Windows 10. Remember, virtualization is enabled on the hardware level or on the operating system level, but the Windows Home will not install the Hyper-V software, right? So the Hyper-V is actually the virtualization software which is installed. So if I try to run this over here, it will actually give me an error. I hope so. Not sure. It can also enable it nowadays in Windows Home also. Yeah, it did not. You can see that. Okay, it requires an elevated permission, but again, if you do that also, it will not enable, right? But I'm talking about, let us say that if you are on some server edition where you're going to really do things, then you need to go and enable this Hyper-V. That is again the first thing. Second, I would suggest to go ahead and install the Hyper-V management tools also, because sometimes you want to go ahead to the Hyper-V and create some virtual switch and so on. I'll come to that later on, right? So that is the step 2. You need to have some kind of virtualization. Now, in case if you don't want to use Hyper-V, then please install Oracle VM. In case, as I am on, at this moment, I am on this Windows Home and I don't have the proper virtualization Hyper-V, right? You can see that this is Oracle VM. So either you do this or either you install the Oracle VM box. So if you are a non-Microsoft guy, you can use this. If you're a Microsoft person on a server, you can use this, right? So that is step 3, right? Guys, all these steps I've already done. Why? Because I don't want to waste time here. For example, I think I did this like one day back, and it took me like 3 hours. So there is no point in showing those demos of 3 hours, right? But do give a try from your side, because there are a lot of small things which probably when I'm explaining I can miss it, right? So step 3, that is this, right? Other things, keep it as it is at this moment. Okay, good. Once you do that, you will then go ahead and say Minikube start. So here it is, step 4. you will say Minikube start. This Minikube start, what it does is it says that, okay, I'm going to go and start. I will go and I will create one default node either on Hyper-V. In case you don't want to create it on Hyper-V, you can also use this and you can say create it on the Oracle box. So in case you want to go ahead and do this, then this will actually go and create on the Oracle box, right? Also, you can use other Hyper-V technologies, either virtualization technologies as well, right? So what I did out here is I went ahead here in my command line, which I already did. I went ahead and I fired this start virtual box. And what it did is, this takes a lot of time. This takes a lot of time. It went to this Oracle box out here and it created a Linux VM. So you can see this is my Oracle virtual box out here, and he created this Minikube, and this is one node out here. So I'm not going to go and run that Linux thing out there, but you can see that he has done this automatically. So when if you actually go and run this, I don't know to destroy it. You can see that it is now going and updating the Minikube version, and then we'll go and we'll install and we'll do things, right? So that is the step 4. Okay. Once you are done with step 4, now you are all ready. So at this moment, once you have done this, now you are at a state wherein the Minikube in your computer has created one node which can be inside the Oracle VM, or it can be inside the Hyper-V, wherever, right? So this the Minikube start command has created this for you, and inside this he has also created some default pods. I will show that, right? So now, so guys, any questions here? How to go ahead and create this node and this VMs, and any questions on the architecture part? Let me go and see some questions out there. Okay. Okay, let me take this question. I can see here I'll start from down. Must be. Load scaling is managed by Kubernetes? No. Load scaling is not managed by Kubernetes. So failover is managed by Kubernetes, you can say, right? As I have said, that there are two parts to it. So load balancing, if you're saying load balancing, it is not managed at the admin side, it is managed at the end user side, right? So here is your big network of hardware. How do you say, giant collaboration of hardware, which has nodes, which has pods, right? All this is out here, right? Now you will put if you're coming from end user, right? If you're coming from the end user, then you will have a load balancer here. Over here, this management layer is not for load balancing. This management layer is, if this goes down, then he will put it out here. So this is for failover. So must be that load balancing word is more coming here. So this load balancing has nothing to really do with, it has nothing to do with Kubernetes directly, right? So it is more for failover. So answering your question, load balancing and load scaling, is it managed by Kubernetes? No, I will say failover is managed by it. Yeah, but nowadays, Kubernetes is used in almost all the cloud environment. They also manage this upgrading of the VMs. That is happening, but that is happening at a very low scale. So I'm not sure really I should say that it is scaling up and scaling down. But yeah, it's in small scale, it does. But at the end of the day, what it again does is it takes that pod and it puts it into a new upgraded VM. So I will still say that this is more of like transferring from one VM to another VM, but it is not really load balancing. Load balancing will come here on the end user side, right? So, okay. Okay, let me. What is the full form of pod? I don't know really. This I need to check. Please check out. Please Google and tell me. I really don't know. My experience with Kubernetes is mostly with AKS, Azure. So I've done Kubernetes for one company where I've used UX. That's my limited knowledge of Kubernetes I have, frankly. I never tried to create Kubernetes and Docker in Linux. I've never done that because I found that it is too much of hard work. All those CI/CD guys, I don't know why they do that. They should really take up an environment like Azure or must be Amazon or Google, where everything is ready, right? You can for training, I've configured it, but then while I was taking the training, I used to think that why am I teaching these guys so much? They don't even have time for sending emails, and then you're telling them you have to go and say Docker create, Docker run, and then so I think at some moment of after like 1 or 2 years, all of this thing will be super automated. I'm sure on that, right? So I would say that please use some automation, use some cloud rather than doing things from scratch. But for knowledge sake, yes. So what is the full form of pod? I really don't know those things. One Kubernetes service will have one public IP. Good question. Let me answer this. One Kubernetes service will have one public IP, and how IPs are managed? No. One Docker image which you are running, a Docker container should have an IP. Remember yesterday when we ran the command, we said that this is the port number and it will be mapped here. So I will say that this access of the IP will be more on the container level. You can have on the Kubernetes management layer, you can have some IP, but that is for the admin part. For the end user, the IP will be more on the container level, because inside the container your application is running. So must be you will give some private IP to it. You will do a NAT, must be public IP mapped to a private IP. So it is more of networking, I will say. But so you can have IP address everywhere. You can have IP addresses on your physical machine. You can have IP address on your VMs. You can have IP address on your containers. But then you have to NAT it, right, properly. So IP address can be everywhere. Okay, let me see the questions here. Node is a OS. Let me answer that. That's a very small line, but a very meaningful line. Node is an operating system, or you can say Node, is it a physical machine? Must be that's the right question we are asking, right? No, Node can be a virtual machine also. It is possible that a node can be a VM also. It is not necessary to be a physical machine. So Node is the actual OS, the host OS must be, you can say, but it can be a virtual machine also. So there is nothing. So nothing stops it to make it a virtual machine. Well, let me go one step ahead. If you're doing Kubernetes in a very what you call advanced level, you will find that a lot of times I have seen nodes as directly the containers as well, right? But most of the time, 99% time, it will be one of them. Shall I use VMware on? Yeah, interesting. Yes, you can try this, because VMware is also a virtualization software. Probably it will work. I have not tried it. Application load balancing, as I've already said, Ramesh, it's not possible. It's not a part of Kubernetes really. Right, good. Okay, now let's go back here. So this is the Minikube created here. Now I want to go and say here, first thing, this kubectl, I have installed it. This kubectl, I have installed it in my downloads. So horrible. I've just put everything in my download. So everything. So let me go to my D drive. This is where I have my kube.exe. Sorry. Yeah, that kubectl.exe is out here. You can see here, right? If you want to run this kubectl, remember kubectl.exe, it helps you to go and do a lot of things with send commands to the management API, right? If you want to make this kubectl.exe as a part of generic exe, generic running, then what you should do is you should put it into your environmental variable. So in the environmental variable, if you go and put this path, then you can run the kube control command from anywhere, right? So now let us go through some commands. Let's say first, I created this cube, that is done, right? The next thing is, let's go and see now something. So let's go and see the, you can see now some commands of kube controls out here. If you want to go and get the nodes, so kube control nodes, I should only get one node. This node is nothing but this node, which is there, which is running. You can see now this node is actually a virtual machine, right, at this moment. Okay, so if I want to get pods, oh, there are no pods, really? That's very bad. Okay, so now let us go ahead and create some pods inside it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and run this pod out here. You can see this command out here, kube create a deployment of a hello node, right? And you can see here, I'm taking this image from online. This is given by the Minikube team, which goes and installs hello node as a pod inside that hello node as a pod inside that node what we have now, right? So I'm going to go and run this command so that I can see some pods, right? So you can think about this is an image, right? So yesterday we saw that how to go ahead and create an image file. So if we have an image file out there, which can be of Windows or which can be of SQL Server of your own application, you just point to the image file, and then Kubernetes will take that and install it into the pod of Docker, or install into a pod of Oracle VM, or install into a pod of Hyper-V, right? So Kubernetes is more of managing your virtualized operating system, which can be of format of a container based like Docker, or it can be a full-blown virtual machine like Oracle or Hyper-V, right? So I will go and I will take this thing out here and I will run this. Okay, so it has created something out there. So now if I go and say get me pods, I think okay, I can use the up arrow key. Okay, you can see now that is a pod which is there, which is installed because I just went ahead and I installed it, right? If you remember, I said that that management layer which is out there, to this management layer, I can go and I can fire commands by two ways. One is I can fire via the command line, which I was doing now. So this management layer out here, I'm always using this management layer, but actually it is the so yeah, it's actually the master node. They term it as a master node. That's the right word, right? But this management layer, one is that you can fire through command line by using that kube control.exe. Another one is you can use a dashboard. So they also have given a dashboard, and with that dashboard also you can do that. So this for this dashboard to invoke, you can go and you can go here and say Minikube, and you can run the dashboard. And what this this dashboard will do is, so okay, I can run it from here. This dashboard will go and it will actually open up a web server. The control panel is not. You want to investigate Minikube logs. Oh, I think like a stupid, I did that Minikube start. Remember? Looks like it went ahead and it did something to my VM. If I run this command now, that's going to take a long time. Yeah. That's really bad. Let me try this. Okay. Oh, wow. That is fast. So let's see now. I thought that he will go and he will do something more horrible. Actually, looks like, it went ahead and it did something, and my dashboard is not running. You can see now my dashboard is running. Right? You should never do things, during training. So you can see this is my dashboard. I can go and I can see my nodes out here. I have at this moment only one node. Inside that node, I can go and I can see I have only one pod. So that's, you can see actually I have a lot of pods. These pods, one is the hello node, and you can see there are other pods. These pods are actually of the Minikube. So for example, this pod actually runs the dashboard. This pod is for the proxy. Remember, this pod is that controller manager. This pod is that etcd of Minikube. So these are all Minikubes one, but this is our one, the hello node. That's our one, our pod which was there, right? So this gives you a dashboard out here, by which you can go ahead, you can go and delete a pod, you can go and see the health of it, you can go and execute this, you can fire the execute command, you can log into it. So you can see, rather than now going to every container, every VM and doing things, right? I have a management layer, a nice dashboard from where I can go and I can do replication controllers. I can say replicate this here. I can run a job. I can do a lot of things from here, right? So we'll go into these details tomorrow, when we do UX, because I feel that this is still very lame dashboard. It is only for learning purpose, but we'll see the actual dashboard with UX, where it is more enterprise, right? So guys, any questions still here? Yes. How I ran the Kubernetes dashboard and so on. Yeah, each deployment, yes, each deployment. I can see some questions out here. Each deployment will create a pod. Yes, it will create a pod 1, pod 2. Yes, it will create a new, I'll not say image, but it will create a new pod instance. Okay, yes, let's see. This question is a good one. Okay, let me take these questions. I'm putting the questions out here so that you can also read it. Let me take up the other question also. Okay. The node you created right now is a VM in your physical box. Okay, let me answer simple ones. The node what you created is right in your VM in your physical box. Yes, it is an Oracle VM. This one. Can you see this VM? This is that Minikube, right? See, remember, if Minikube was not there, then today I would have taken a class for 4 hours, right? Create Kubernetes, create a cluster, create 2 nodes, right? So that we will do tomorrow by using Ux. So this I use Minikube just to show you that what are the basics, right? So yes, it is at this moment into my Oracle VM. Let's say I have 5 nodes on production server. Okay, can I at least create 2 node environment on local machine using Docker and Kubernetes? You will be using Docker inside Kubernetes. So I don't know, Docker and Kubernetes. Can I create 2 node environment using Docker? Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. You can create 2 nodes using Docker and Kubernetes. Absolutely, you can. It's very simple. What should be a pod and what should be a node? Let me simplify for you. Node will actually, in 99% time, node will be your physical machine, period. Frankly, if you ask me, it should be your physical machine, right? Until you are doing something complex, right? Then you will have lot of 1 or 2 containers, 1 or 2 like Docker 1 instance and Docker 2 instance and so on, right? These Docker instances, I would suggest that you should go and you should create a logical pod of this. So must be that this is pod 1. Why? Because they belong to only one application. They are one application unit. Then you should go and create a pod. So pod should be more application level logic. If you're thinking that, okay, inventory, accounting, and all this is one thing, then you should make a pod of all of the 3 Dockers, right? This is the most simplest way to visualize it. So don't confuse too much. Don't try to make too much R&D and create a physical machine and then a VM inside a VM, and then you make some containers, and then containers again as something. Too much difficult to handle. Keep it simple. You are doing container-based architecture because you are embracing microservices. You want to do parallel development. You want to do parallel deployment. You want to use your hardware in an efficient way, right? So just try to think logically that why you are doing microservices, why you are doing, right? So don't complicate it by VM inside VM and pod inside pod. You can do that, but then that would be just be an R&D. Can we drop Docker image into a container pod? Yes, absolutely. You can drop a Docker image into a container pod. Okay, so when you actually create an image, this is a good question. So the command was like this. I said here, create deployment, right? There are 2 commands I'll say, create deployment and expose deployment. This create deployment, what it does is it actually goes and creates an instance. This expose deployment, it actually goes and expose this hello node into an IP address so that people can see it, right? This one here, makes only a physical node pod, which is accessible only in that machine. If you want to go and say, it should be accessible outside, then you should do a deployment. Now, when you do this deployment out here, this create deployment, right? What it does is it creates a new instance of the pod and keeps it. So it actually creates a new instance. You cannot have an empty Docker running. You can have it, but that would be very rare, right? You cannot, means like if you look at Docker, you cannot, Docker, you are thinking like a VM. This question, can we drop a Docker image into a pod? So yes, you can do this. You can deploy a Docker image into a pod, but you cannot run Docker image like a OS. Huh? So if you're thinking that is not possible, yeah, this is possible. You can drop a Docker image into a pod. So you can take this Docker image. At this moment, this image is going to go inside a pod only, right? At the end of the day, it will create a new fresh instance of the pod, right? Okay, so that's a very good question, and this one we are doing tomorrow, guys, not today. Today I will not. Today I don't want to go into Docker because I am on my local machine and it is getting heated out here, and I'm on Windows Home, right? Is it possible? Can we show an MVC core application in? No, not inside Minikube. No, we don't do that. I've done it. It's of no use. For example, it is like asking, the question you're asking me is that Can we install personal web server on production? You can. So if you remember, we had those local host server which runs inside Visual Studio. Can you do that? Yes, you can, but that is only for testing purpose. Even if you do it, it has nothing to achieve, right? So tomorrow when we do UX, we will do this. We'll not do it now. Today, let's not do this because you will be learning unnecessary something, because I wasted my 15 days doing it. And then when I saw UX and when I saw Google, this one, I said like, this is much better approach, right? And inside the company, if you're doing it, then let me know. I will share you a documentation. Inside your company, if you're having if you're going to go and create one own server, then you want to go and install a Docker and then do something with Kubernetes and CI/CD inside your own server, please contact me. I'll tell you the detailed steps of it for Windows. Now, guys, I've done only for Windows. But today, let's not attempt that. I don't intend to attempt today. Okay, just let's continue. Let me just see what else we have. So we have the dashboard. We saw how to install this. We saw Minikube. We saw the cube control and this and this and this, right? Okay, good. So quickly, guys, tomorrow, my goal is when you say UX, that UX movie comes, huh? So that's what my goal is, Azure. Where Azure has its own Kubernetes services. I'm going to take Azure as in this class. You know why? Because let me go to Microsoft's Azure, this one, right? So we're going to go and use this, you know, for doing things. Why? Because over here everything is integrated, everything is done. The second, you know, my problem today also for the demo was I had two machines actually. One was the Windows 2019 server, and that crashed first. Second, then I said that okay, let me show you guys the demo on Azure. I thought about it. I went to Azure. So I went to Azure, right? Now Azure itself is a VM. So that VM cannot be again be virtualized. So I was not, so I didn't have any way to show you the demo. So actually I wanted to demo this. This part I really wanted to demo it. So one is that my physical machine crashed. Second is this MVC core inside Minikube. Then what I thought is I will go to the cloud, and in cloud I will do it. But in cloud already those are VMs only. Inside that VM, if you say you want to go and now put Minikube, then it becomes a problem. Why? Because the you know, over there then you have to go and use other. So what they were suggesting is, which then I stopped after that. I said no, I'm not going to do this. So what they suggested is that if you want to do Azure VM virtualization, right? They have something else. So this is called as Azure nested virtualization. So I said like I don't want to complicate today's lecture, and I left it. So actually I did have a plan to do this, but I'm just giving you the reason that why I didn't do it, because it was too complex. It did not make any sense. Okay. But tomorrow we'll do the UX thing. Yeah. So guys, any questions? It's only 10 minutes left out now. Any queries? And today, even if I start, it will be a problem. If let us say there is 5 microservices, then we would employ, no. Let me take this question. No. If we have 5 microservices, then it would employ 5 pods. No, like no, it can employ. If these 5 microservices are belonging to one unit, for example, let us say you have an healthcare application, which has accounting. So for accounting, you have created one microservice. You have created for inventory one microservice, for patient management one microservice, must be right. And then this will become one pod. I would really create this as one pod. Pod is not equal to microservices. Pod is a logical grouping of microservices, or I will say logical grouping of your containers. So this will go into one container, one microservice will go into one container, I hope so. And then one inventory will go into one container, means one Docker container. So it will be one pod. Why you are making one pod? Because then I can take all this, and tomorrow, let's say some failover happens, I'll take it from here and I will go and I will install it into some other pod, other VM, right? So that's why, you know, the pod is useful, because so that you can take the whole bunch and take it wherever you want to. So one microservices is not one pod. Okay, guys, so we'll close here, and tomorrow we will do the UX thing. I will try to still see if I can do pure Kubernetes with Windows. and Docker. So I'll try that today night if I can make my, so this is definitely my, I want to show this pure Kubernetes with Windows, Docker, and MVC core, right? But also let's look at Lux, you'll like it. Okay. I'll try that, because my machine has to be still made up. Wow, very good question. I'll take this. I can see that Azure Fabric. Yes, Azure Fabric is exactly like Kubernetes, right? I would really suggest everyone to go and watch the QuestCon video of Azure, where I've explained Azure Fabric very quickly, guys. This is a very good question. So in Azure step by step, I have created one video which is Azure Fabric. I will not run it fully, but this, I'll just mute it. So if you see this Azure Fabric, I can just fast forward this. It's absolutely equivalent of Kubernetes. You can see this is the same thing here. Look at this. So in Azure, you can use the Azure Fabric and you can see the same image. So they also have a management layer. This is wrong. I shouldn't say this is load balancer. This load balancer word I've used from a different perspective. This load balancer word I've used from the perspective of deployment, right? So don't think from the end user. So this is Azure Fabric. In Kubernetes, it is called as the master node. You can see there are small nodes out here, right? And then they are tied up with a cluster. Same kind of architecture, right? So what I did out here is I went here and I can show you some very, very nice pictures of Azure Fabric. It's not, Azure Fabric is not picking up because of, I think I do have, oh, I have this Azure Fabric out here. I can, okay. Let me, you can see in my computer, I have Azure Fabric. What the hell it is doing here? See, let me show, like, can I, okay. Can you see, guys, in my, this local also, I have installed this Azure Fabric 1 node, 5 node. So all that is out here in my local, you can see. So that's absolutely what Azure Fabric is. Actually, if you see this thing, let me show you that thing. That, yeah, look at this. This is the Service Fabric Explorer, which is nothing, the same thing, the same web application, what I've shown you. Over here, I had shown you the Kubernetes dashboard. This is the Microsoft dashboard. You can see there are nodes. Inside the nodes, there will be instances. So the same kind of concept. They in Azure, Azure Fabric, at least 6 months back, which I've done, 1 year back, to be frank, I did not see the functionality of pods as such. So the nodes was the last unit what they had, right? But absolutely, Azure Fabric is the same thing, right? Is Service Fabric widely used in production? No, I didn't see too many people using it, and I found it to be very problematic. Kubernetes is nice. You can use Azure, integrate Kubernetes in it, and it's great. It's awesome. Must be that after some time when Azure Fabric gets matured, it is good. But like, I think after 1.5 years also, I am seeing so many issues. For example, in Azure Fabric, if I want to set up security, which is very important, if you look at the over here, this is most important part, security. You create an accounting application, you create an HR application, but it should not happen that your HR application can be integrated with anyone, right? So there should be a trusted cluster inside it. Damn it, when I wanted to create this trusted cluster, it took a lot of time for me. If you look at Kubernetes, it's very easy. JWT token, this, it's quite easy as compared to what I saw with the Azure Fabric, right? But you can go and have a look at the video. You can try to experiment it. It also has its own what do you call advantages. One of the advantages which I found in Azure Fabric is that completely integrated with Visual Studio. Right click, deploy, done. You don't have to do that. Those files, Docker ignore files, those things you don't have to do over here. Okay, thank you very much, guys.